Coming up this week on Talking Royals, Chris and Lizzie are in Rome. They'll be giving us the inside track on how the King and Queen's Italian getaway has gone down.
The headline of one of the papers the next day was King Charles III pulls off a miracle.
Having them here was priceless.
We'll also be chatting about Meghan's new podcast.
Would you have learned very much if you were starting out in business? Probably not.
And William makes his punditry debut.
I'm thinking long ball a bit. I'm thinking also how they're going to get round the high press.
Hello and welcome to Talking Royals. Now, as you can see, I'm not in the studio today, but that is for a very good reason, because our royal editor, Chris Schiff, and our royal producer, Lizzie Robinson, have got me up and out early from bed because you were in Rome, guys. Oh, Italy. You're in Italy.
Yes, welcome to Rome. If you've seen any news this week, well, I'm sure you have, Charlene, because you've been reading it, but if you've seen any news this week, you'll know that the King and Queen have been in Rome on this state visit. And the podcast comes from the grounds of the British ambassador to Rome, and I kind of think it's quite a special place.
Well, you did send, you did pop a video into our group WhatsApp chat a bit earlier on, and the grounds are absolutely stunning. Conversely, I know that you can't see me, but I am literally sat in my living room in front of my bookcase. So it's very different.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any oranges or lemons that you've just picked off the tree in the back garden of your house?
Can I just clarify? Chris hasn't been picking fruit. He has picked them off the floor before.
This is the kind of place we are.
It is absolutely. The gardens are really beautiful, and the King and the Queen have been staying here actually this week while they've been on their 4-day state visit of Italy, and there's been a couple of engagements held at the residence. There was a reception on their second day here on Tuesday, and then yesterday the King actually planted a tree in these gardens just sort of beyond where we are sitting at the moment. We passed the plaque as we came over. He gave it his traditional little wave and good luck tree, as he always does, and he sort of joked, I hope I'm around long enough to see it grow. And when you sort of walk around the grounds, you can imagine the King and Queen staying here. We know they both love being outdoors, they both love gardens. There's a beautiful vegetable patch sort of the other side of where we are. There's some bees being kept to my right as well, so I think I'm sure they very much enjoyed staying here.
Do you know what, though? I think it shows the levels at which you two work, where we're trying to find a location for you to do this episode of the podcast, and you two managed to bag being in the British ambassador's residence. I've got to say, I've got to bow down to you both. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you said it's a challenge last week, or at least we had a discussion, didn't we, with the production team. Can you find somewhere in the centre of Rome that's not too noisy so we can still hear you, but looks quite beautiful and has got some, for example, the old walls are right next to us right here. And we went, God, never going to happen. And then Lizzie's hit the ball out of the park by sorting this out.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how this happened, to be honest, but everyone has been very generous to let us come and film here today. We sort of were coming up with lots of ideas, and they said, would this do? And I was like, would this do? Are you joking? This would be amazing. So thank you to the team on the ground.
Oh, well, I expect Chris to knock up some cocktails for us with those lemons and oranges when you get back, Chris.
You asked for a present. I can bring you this back.
No, we're not going to do the present just yet, and it better not be something you picked up off the floor, Chris. I'm just saying that right now in terms of my gift from your Royal Tour. But tell us, how do you reckon the Royal Tour went this time round? Was it a success?
Yeah, well, listen, it's hard really to gauge. We only know what we've seen. And actually, I was just talking to someone about the impact it's had on the Italian press, because I think actually when you're on these kind of state visits, they're kind of less about how we're reporting them back home, and we can tell you everything that we've said and done. But actually, it's a lot more about how the Italian press have been writing it, and particularly that speech that the King gave in Parliament, partly in Italian, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But that, we said last week in the podcast, it goes down really well. Well, the headline of one of the papers the next day was King Charles III pulls off a miracle, and just by referencing like their wedding anniversary in Italian, he also spoke about a famous mafia lawyer who'd been murdered back in 1992, and he got a standing ovation. You know, it just went down so well here. And that's the part of this, that's what state visits are about, Charlene. They're not really about how the British press report it, and that, you know, but it's about how it's seen in the country that they are visiting.
Yeah, it's always this soft power of monarchy. With the visit was at the request of the British government. They are here at that request, but it is always, you know, they're deployed to use that soft power that they have and to help strengthen relationships with countries like Italy. They've also been deployed to France, to Germany since they became King and Queen, and those visits also went down incredibly well and were sort of deemed afterwards a success, weren't they?
And you'll note that the three countries that Lizzie just listed in the EU are, by not coincidence, the three biggest economies. Germany, France, Italy have now all been ticked off as state visits for the King since his reign. You know, it is not all about trade, but it is a lot about trade. And of course, with everything going on in the world with Donald Trump and his tariffs at the moment, building these kind of relations are very important. It
was described to us before this tour kicked off how these visits, or this visit, was sort of having them here was priceless, wasn't it? That was the word that was used to us.
Now, one thing you did mention last week is, of course, the King planning on speaking in Italian at some points during this tour. So did he manage to pull it off?
He did, very, very well.
Yeah.
So he became the first British monarch to address a joint session of the Italian Parliament. He gave a very long speech. I think it was about 22 minutes all up, and it was in a blend of Italian and English, and it went down incredibly well, as Chris says.
I mean, I think, to be fair, the speeches in Germany and France had longer sections in those languages because he's much more comfortable with French and German. And I think we'd said last week, how's he going to do it in Italian? Well, my sources tell me that actually here in the residence, by the way, which is where the King and Queen were staying, as Lizzie said, he'd been doing a lot of rehearsing, and I think all the staff in the embassy were helping him with his pronunciation. But if you want to see for yourself how he did, this is what he sounds like in Italian.
Sono enormemente onorato di essere stato invitato qui oggi e molto grato al Presidente Mattarella per il suo gentile invito a compiere una visita di Stato in Italia.
Well, yes, I think he's done well. The words seem correct. I think that, I don't know, he could work a little bit on his delivery, I suppose. I won't give him completely 10 out of 10.
I think it's all about the effort, though, isn't it?
10 out of 10 for effort. That's how the Italians saw it. Because actually, British people don't really speak Italian very well.
He cares really deeply when he comes on these visits about, you know, being able to speak the language of the country where he is, and he could have done a little bit at the top of the speech and then spoken the rest in English, but he made a real effort there to try and speak Italian throughout the speech, and had worked, you know, as Chris says, quite hard in the days leading up to delivering it. So it's something that he spends a lot of time, I think, you know, thinking about.
So of course, Chris, it was meant to be 2 state visits, but ended up being 1, didn't it?
Yes, and we've spoken before about the Pope's had to cancel, so the state visit to the Vatican, which is of course a separate state, didn't happen. But they did release a picture on Thursday morning of the King and Queen having a private audience with Pope Francis. He was well enough to invite them into the Vatican. That happened on Wednesday afternoon, just after the speech to Parliament that we spoke about, and they did get to see Pope Francis, but that was a private visit, and the rearrangements for the state visit are still sort of on hold for the time being. Let's
talk fashion. I know that's a high point for you, Chris. You know, you're a little bit of a fashion icon, I suppose. There was something very interesting about what the Queen wore on one of the days of this tour, wasn't there?
Yes, so she wore white the other day, and she wore white on her wedding day.
I think I'll pick up. So the Queen's outfit that she wore to the Parliament, which is what we were just talking about, where the King delivered that speech, she re-wore the dress that she wore in 2005 to her wedding to Prince Charles at the time, now King Charles, and Wednesday was their 20th wedding anniversary on the 9th of April. So the dress or the outfit had been slightly repurposed by its designer Anna Valentine, and it also included some embroidery by a King's Foundation artisan, Beth Somerville. And I think when Chris says white, I think we're going with ivory.
Ivory was definitely what I meant. But actually, you know, Charlene, how the royals like to do things through imagery rather than words. So, you know, we didn't hear from Camilla on her wedding anniversary on Wednesday because they wanted the whole focus, of course, to be on the King's speech. But that's exactly how royals do things. They say, you know, oh, look, here's the dress coat that I was wearing on the day of my wedding at the Guildhall. Remember, she had a different outfit, I'm sure Lizzie knows what it is, at the St George's Chapel. And it is worth recapping, actually, a few of the things that happened around that time. Pope John Paul II had just died. The wedding was meant to be on the 8th of April, but they had to postpone the wedding so that Prince Charles could attend the funeral of the Pope, and we'll talk about the other Pope in a minute, I'm sure, as well. But it meant that they had a blessing at St George's Chapel on the Saturday that the Queen attended, but the actual wedding ceremony happened at the Guildhall in Windsor. The late Queen didn't attend, and that is when Camilla wore this ivory dress by Anna Valentine.
So there were a couple of other things around the anniversary to celebrate it while they were in Italy. They had some photographs taken actually here in the gardens that we're in at the moment. Those were taken by Getty photographer Chris Jackson. And the Queen also spoke not on camera, but she did a little chat with some of the British media that were travelling to Italy, and she was talking about the secrets to a successful marriage. They have now been married for 20 years, of course, and she was saying that friendship and laughing at the same things were kind of her secrets to a happy marriage. She was asked if they'd exchanged gifts, and the reporter chatting to her said, "Do you think his gift to you will be to perhaps slow down a bit? We know he's a workaholic, and that the Queen has said in the past that, you know, she can't get him to slow down." And her response was, "Dream on." Dream on, indeed.
I mean, 20th is China, and I think the Queen said she did get something China for him, but she didn't explain exactly what that was.
I think it's a really beautiful way for them to mark their 20th wedding anniversary, and I think it's a really good excuse to delve back into the archive, because we might as well to have a look back at that footage from 20 years ago. I can't believe it's been 20 years. It feels like it's flown by, really. But yeah, we're going to use this as an opportunity, I reckon, to have a look at and share those memories from 20 years ago, because, you know, there was so much controversy about that wedding, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much to talk about at the time about Prince Charles marrying Camilla and everything that had happened before, and that you know, her going from the most hated woman in Britain, as some of the newspapers called her after the death of Princess Diana. So there was a lot riding on that wedding, and Camilla's actually spoken previously about waking up feeling absolutely frozen with fear. But yes, we've got a report, I think, haven't we, from that date in 2005?
Yeah, we do. Let's take a look.
As the Prince and his bride were being driven the short distance from Windsor Castle to the Guildhall this morning, history prepared to record a royal marriage without precedence. This, a royal love affair finally without hindrance. Their long and difficult journey to the altar was about to end. Prince William, a witness, and his brother Harry led the close family members into Windsor's Guildhall for the short, private, civil ceremony, from which 20 minutes later the married couple emerged, the Prince leading Camilla Parker Bowles out from the shadows on his arm. His former lover and mistress, now his wife, and the new Duchess of Cornwall.
So much has changed in 20 years. I think there's so much more affection for Queen Camilla now, and of course the brothers, you know, you don't see them pictured together anymore. Harry was in court this week, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He happened to turn up in London on Wednesday for this court case he's got against the Home Office, which is about his state-funded security. Very quick recap: when Harry left the royal family in 2020, his royal family level protection was downgraded And instead he was offered a bespoke service, so when you come over you get the kind of security we think you need, because yes, you're still the son of the king, and yes, you're still a very high profile figure. So he gets the RAVEC, this is the committee that decides these things, a bespoke security arrangement. Harry's not happy with that, thinks he should get higher levels of security, and he's taken this case to court.
So this is a judge ruled that the current situation with his security being dealt with on a case-by-case basis, that was originally ruled that the situation was fine, and Harry lost that case. So he has now taken this to the Court of Appeal. So he was in London for 2 days this week. He turned up at court on both days for the appeal hearings. The judgment on that we haven't had yet. That will come at a later date.
And it took us by surprise, because then he rocked up in Ukraine, which we weren't expecting either.
Yeah, there was quite a few surprises. We kind of knew or suspected that Harry was in London, just because of the way in which you do this job is no one ever actually tells you anything. You just have to read between the lines. And we kind of suspected that Harry was in London. It turns out that he was here on the Sunday before that. And all this talk about, well, he didn't see his father. Well, his father was in Rome, Harry was in London. They're quite a distance apart. But it does mean that on Sunday, and at least Monday morning, they were in the same country at the same time. In fact, we hear the king might have even had some hospital treatment on Sunday. So they were together at in the country at the same time, but they didn't see one another. No great surprise there. But yeah, Harry was turning up in a court in London at the High Court, and then 2 days later we were told that he popped up in Ukraine as well. And there are some pictures from his office of Harry turning up in Lviv in Western Ukraine.
Same time this week, he's in Ukraine and London, and his wife, Meghan, released the first episode of her new podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder.
She's been incredibly busy at the moment, hasn't she? Every week we seem to talk about a new venture that Meghan has launched, but this week is a new podcast. This is going to be conversations with female founders and friends, all about building their businesses, and sort of comes at a good time for Meghan as she builds her own new business. And I think what we'll see, or what they've teased, is that she will sort of reflect on her own experiences of building that business through the episodes.
I don't know whether you heard it, Charlene, but it's a conversation with a friend of hers called Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is the founder of the dating app Bumble. They're good friends in any case, and they spend a lot of time sort of complimenting one another. Would you have learned very much if you were starting out in business? Probably not. You've got to obviously learn to manage your time, is what they were saying. I suppose there was one that I thought that I completely agreed with, and I'm sure you will too, Charlene, is like, don't sweat over the little things. If it doesn't matter in like 5 years' time, why give it a second thought now? And don't waste time on those kind of things if you could spend that time being with your family. And I thought that was probably the key takeaway for me from Meghan's chat with her friend. But they spend a lot of the time talking about packaging and boxes and what the unboxing experience might or might not be like, and that's what's been keeping Meghan awake apparently in the weeks before the launch of her new products.
I think, as always, with everything that Meghan and Harry do, this is going to divide opinion. There will be some people that love it and want to listen to it, and some people that will criticise it. But that really does happen with everything they do. I think we've said that, continually over the last few weeks.
But I have to say, as someone that listens to, quite a few American podcasts, it's very American. It's very West Coast. It's very LA. And I did quite enjoy the little bits talking about how Bumble was created and the process in which she went through before the idea came to fruition. But it is very, I know we're all wonderful, patting each other on the back, but that's kind of what they do in American podcasts, I think. And I think for an American audience, they'll really enjoy it. And there are quite a few female founder podcasts around, and you never get 40 minutes packed full of information. As you say, Chris, it's just a few nuggets that you can sort of take away, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you live on the west coast of America, you might like phrases like, all I can control is the extension of my essence and my aesthetic. if I can remember that sentence, I will definitely base my working life around those thoughts. But I mean, it's West Coast American language. If you like that, you'll love the podcast. If you find that slightly upsetting to your karma, then you won't.
Upsetting to your karma. Right, let's take a listen to Meghan talking about working from home with a little bit.
She knows where to find me. Even if my door is closed to the office, she'll be sitting there on my lap during one of these meetings with a grid of all the executives, and here we are. And I think, you know, that could have something to do with it, but also I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't want to miss those moments. I don't want to miss pickup if I don't have to. I don't want to miss drop off. And
I don't either.
And I think what I do love the most about having young kids in this chapter while I'm building is the perspective that it brings.
Well, as someone that's been forced to do this podcast during the Easter holidays, when one kid is currently watching Diary of a Wimpy Kid and the other one's on their Nintendo Switch, I can completely understand where Meghan is coming from. Let's go to the last bit that we're going to talk about today, and that's William and football. He's been doing a little bit of punditry, hasn't he?
He has. This has gone down incredibly well. So Prince William, as we all know, is a huge Aston Villa fan. He was in Paris this week to watch Aston Villa versus Paris Saint-Germain play in their Champions League quarter-final. You're really testing my football knowledge with this, but he was over there with Prince George, and he joined Ali McCoist and Rio Ferdinand for a bit of a chat, and his football punditry went down so well that Rio Ferdinand actually stopped him in the middle of the chat to say, can I just ask that you please don't do any football punditry, because I actually think it might put me out of a job. On one of the front pages in the UK this morning, it's the Prince the pundit, and he 100% would be up for doing more of this. He is a huge football fan. He's president of the FA. He loves Aston Villa. He's very involved. He appears on chat forums anonymously to keep across what's happening and the intricacies of what's going on with the team, and it seems that all that means that he can analyse very well.
Oh, I tell you what, I'd love to know what his fantasy football handle is. But yeah, let's take a look at the clip.
Unai likes it when their teams come onto them, play quite high press, but obviously there's a limit, and that, can we get round the press? Can we beat it? So I'm thinking long ball a bit. I'm thinking also how they're going to get round the high press. So it's going to be a challenging night, and I'm looking forward to the tactics that Unai is going to have to employ.
Can I just say something? Do not go for a punditry job, please, because I could be out of the game. The way he just dissected that there, I'm going to nick that for later on.
You can see, I think he was a very good pundit, so if he ever does run out of a job, which is highly unlikely, of course, he could do that. I will just say one thing, though, Charlene, which would probably the fans of the Sussexes will probably agree with, that when Harry went to the High Court this week and turned up in person, there was a lot of, is he trying to overshadow his dad's tour of Italy? But when Prince William did that punditry with Rio Ferdinand, I never heard anyone say, well, why did he do that at the same time his dad's in Italy? So it gives you some idea of the sort of inequality of the reaction that the two brothers get.
Exactly, and that's something that we've talked about in our group many times. But look, we've come to the end of the podcast, guys, and for anyone who's not aware, obviously it's Easter next week, so we're going to take a couple of weeks off, aren't we? You guys have been running around like headless chickens in Italy, so you're going to take a well-deserved break. So we're actually not going to be back until May the 2nd, I believe. But in that time, don't worry, you can still get in touch with us. Do email us at talkingroyals@itv.com. You can chuck us some questions. Well, I probably won't be answering the royal questions. I think that's probably Lizzie and Chris that will answer any burning royal questions that you have. You two have a safe journey back to London, okay?
Thank you.
We will. And actually, in Meghan's podcast, you said only put compliments, not comments. So actually, we should probably encourage everyone only to send in the nice stuff.
Yeah, only send in the complimentary comments and questions. That would be perfect. But that brings us to the end of Talking Royals for now. We'll see you back again on May the 2nd. But don't forget, you can catch every episode of Talking Royals wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review whilst you're there. But until next time, have an absolutely brilliant Easter, and we'll see you next month.